Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 485 for the 4th of February 2018. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia, where it's stinking hot one day and mild the next. You may remember that last week I mentioned that I could have been coming down with some sort of skeptical cold or something. Wow, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was flat on my back for a couple of days, well, a couch potato really, doing very little. So those people who sent emails and wanted to communicate with me, apologies. That I was just trying to get better, drinking lots of soup and tea and things like that. And I'm on the mend. I'm almost better now. Certainly well enough to bring you a Skeptic Zone. Coming up this week, the welcome return of the Raw Skeptic herself, Heidi Robertson. Heidi's going to be reporting on various news articles in the last week or two, in relation to vaccination, of course, including an update to the story we brought you last week about the nurse who was trying to fight attempts by the government authority to censure her or reprimand her or investigate her or whatever the case may be. We find out the latest on that, plus some other stories in the world of the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. Following that, it's an odd sort of story that I found while doing research on the Great Prediction Project. I discovered a wonderful article or advertisement from way back in 1980 about sort of the end of the world, or prophecy, or predictions. It's very scary. Not. But it's quite interesting, and a good lesson for us today, believe it or not. That's coming up in the middle of the show. Then to round off the show, Maynard's back again. Yes, Maynard's spooky action. Maynard heads back to Skeptics in the pub just a couple of days ago. I was unable to make it, sadly. I don't like missing out on Skeptics in the pub. I really have a good time. But with the recent death of our friend Barry Williams, Maynard asks pub goers how they would like to be remembered. How would skeptics like to be remembered once they go? It's a question we can all ponder. Maybe some of us would like to be forgotten. I don't know. That's Maynard's usual madness coming up at the end of the show. Also coming up at the end of the show, some information about some upcoming events around the skeptical community. But now it's time for me to grab those cats. Where are they? Oh, there she is. Hey. You going to say meow? I don't know if you heard that. She woke up and said meow and went back to sleep. Are you awake? No, you're awake now. Say, meow. Come here, come on. Here she comes off her shelf in the studio. Come on. Come on. She jumps up and touches my hand, which means she gets a scratch on her head. That's Maud. Okay, Maud, you and I are going to run downstairs. I'm going to have another cup of chicken soup. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone, Heidi Robertson here from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We have an update to the report that Richard gave us recently on episode 484 about some nurses that are facing possible disciplinary action for allegedly posting anti-vaccination comments on Facebook. The update to this story is short and sweet and comes to us from the same journalist, Vanda Carson of the Courier Mail, and it was printed on the 30th of January 2018. Quote, "Anti-vaccination nurse fails to obstruct watchdog." A Sunshine Coast nurse accused of posting anti-vaccination comments in a, quote, rabidly anti-vaccine secret Facebook group, end quote, has failed in her bid to block the health watchdog from considering disciplinary action. In the Supreme Court in Brisbane, Elizabeth Jane Gregg from Sunshine Beach represented herself before Justice Rosalind Atkinson, asking for an injunction to stop the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Australia from further pursuing her. Ms. Gregg, a registered nurse and midwife, launched the case after she was told she had until February the 2nd to respond to claims she is facing a possible caution and could be forced to study, quote, evidence-based practice, end quote, after she posted, quote, numerous anti-vaccination statements, end quote, online, quote, including a post in which you state that vaccines are Satan's latest plan to taint and change human DNA, end quote. In court documents, Ms. Gregg has denied she has ever promoted anti-vaccination. And that ends that article from Vander Carson in the Courier Mail. Things have been active in the media this past week with regards vaccination, with another story breaking of a person allegedly misleading her doctor into giving her an unwarranted medical exemption for all vaccinations for her child. This article comes to us from Kathy O'Leary of the West Australian newspaper and was published on Monday the 29th of January 2018. Quote, pro-vaccination lobbyists concerned about social media boasts of doctors being duped into giving immunisation exemptions. Pro-vaccination lobbyists want tighter monitoring of no jab, no pay laws after a person claiming to be from Western Australia boasted on social media that they duped their doctor into providing a medical exemption. Parents can only claim certain childcare and family tax benefits from Centrelink if their children are immunised or have a medical exemption from a doctor after the federal government removed conscientious objection as a valid excuse in 2016. Vaccination advocacy website Reasonable Hank has raised concerns that some anti-vaccinating parents could be fraudulently claiming benefits by persuading their doctors to give them a medical exemption they are not entitled to receive. It provided details of a person using the name Amanda Hooton, who wrote on social media this week that she had, quote, told a white lie to get an exemption for her second child. She claimed to have used pictures of her older daughter who had come out in a rash after being given penicillin. Quote, my second child had her 2-month needles and then I went back to the doctor with pictures of the allergic reaction and said that's what happened from the needles and pretended it was her instead of my older child, end quote, the woman wrote to the group Anti-Vaccination Australia. Quote, she recorded it on the state system and wrote her off on any other immunisations. She referred us to an immunologist and I, quote, forgot, end quote, about the appointment and have never looked back. She now starts school next week and is the healthiest kid ever. Bad, I know. I will be removing these comments in 15 minutes. Ha ha, end quote. The comments were removed from social media. 2 years ago, a person calling herself Amanda Hooton described on social media how she had used the pictures to get an exemption for her then 19-month-old after being, quote, bullied into giving the baby her first immunisations. At that time, the woman claimed the rash in the pictures was a reaction to immunisation shots, not penicillin. Quote, feel free to use my pictures to convince a GP that your child had a reaction. This stuff is potent. It could have killed my baby, end quote, the woman wrote on social media. The West Australian does not know if the person making the claims has received Centrelink payments they are not entitled to receive. When the newspaper tried to seek a response, Ms. Hooton said her daughter was legally on a medical exemption, end quote. And that is the end of that article. That piece was followed up by another 2 days later, again from Kathy O'Leary from the West Australian. Quote, "Opinion, sharp end of jab debate is simply common sense. If you hold strong anti-vaccination views, you should probably look away now, because you will not believe anything I am about to say. But if you do read this, can I start by shattering the myth that I am paid by big pharmaceutical companies to write pro-vaccination propaganda and push up their share prices? This is a cliche that continues to be used about journalists and eminent researchers from the likes of the Telethon Kids Institute in order to peddle misinformation to vulnerable parents who just want the best for their children. I am prompted to write this after receiving criticism and abuse following an article I wrote about concerns that some people could be giving false information to doctors to claim welfare benefits and even boasting of it. Since the federal government's no jab, no pay laws were introduced 2 years ago, if parents refuse to vaccinate their children, they are ineligible for some welfare payments. But there are claims on social media of some parents telling doctors that their child has reacted to a routine immunisation in order to get a medical exemption from further vaccinations and still get paid. The number of these parents has the potential to grow because they are using their own networks and social media to explain how they claim to have circumvented laws designed to protect our community as a whole from disease outbreaks. These laws are there to give payments to parents who recognise the importance of public health measures for the common good, not just for individual children. They are not intended to whitewash what is an indisputable fact, that there is a very small risk from vaccines like any drugs pose. What we know from the facts is that a very small number of children have had abnormally severe reactions, some catastrophic, because of a particular vaccine. These are tragic cases with profound, life-changing consequences. But if your child suffered a devastating freak injury in a car accident caused by their seatbelt, would you regard all seatbelts as dangerous and believe people should not have to wear them? It is the same common sense approach, weighing up the countless times seatbelts have saved someone from death or a more serious injury, to accept that millions of vaccines are used for children every year with an extremely low risk of serious complications. If vaccines were so risky, our hospital wards would be full of damaged children. So does it really matter if people are claiming welfare benefits they are not entitled to? Does the government have the right to force them to vaccinate their children? Of course, the government does not have any such power. And if people feel that strongly about not vaccinating, they could simply forego the payment. But it appears some do not want to give it up and instead want to circumvent the rules. But there is actually a far more dangerous consequence of attempts to flout the laws by pretending a child has suffered a reaction to an immunisation. First, others hear of these cases, the unedited version, and for some people with mixed feelings about vaccinating their children, this can reinforce their fears that there is a good chance their child will be harmed by vaccinations. Second, doctors are required to report adverse reactions to vaccines, to provide authorities with real-time monitoring of their safety. So when false cases are reported to them, it skews the statistics to suggest vaccines are more dangerous than they actually are. This is largely the agenda of the vocal anti-vaccination movement, to overplay the risks and play down the benefits. This nonsense continues to be peddled even in 2018 and still has the potential to cause a panicky shift away from vaccination. It never ceases to amaze me how people who purport to care so much about children can talk of wanting to see other people's children, quote, die a slow death, end quote, or being left severely disabled from a vaccine. These are comments myself and other journalists have received. Finally, for the record, I am not on the payroll of Big Pharma, nor am I, quote, told to sugarcoat vaccination stories by my editor or anyone else. I have managed to work this all out for myself using a good dose of common sense and science, end quote. And that's the end of the article. And for the record, I and all of us at NRVS are also not on the payroll of Big Pharma. As the topic of vaccination continues to come up in the media, we can only hope that people will gain more awareness surrounding the importance of vaccination, not only for their children, but for the wider community. If you are in doubt about what, if any, adult boosters you may need, you can visit our website at nrvs.info, go to the Resources tab and see the guide to adult immunisation for Australia. Till next time, this has been Heidi Robertson. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Ben Radford.
And this is Pasquale Romero from the Squaring the Strange podcast.
Every week, my co-host and I cast a skeptical eye at a different topic.
Monsters, ghosts, demons, mysteries, and even current events are dissected and discussed with a fun, unscripted, and skeptical take that you're sure to enjoy.
Find us at squaringthestrange.com, iTunes, or on your favorite podcast platform.
Wake up, Australia! Prophecy has much to tell us of what is coming on Earth, only too soon. Communism will be defeated. That is for certain. But there will be 7 years of hell on Earth first, beginning next year. This dire warning comes in the form of 2 full pages taken out in the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper in 1980, way back in April in 1980. I discovered this while I was doing research for the Prediction Project, looking back over the years, many, many years, looking for such terms as prophecy, prediction, and this little gem came up. Now, 1980 is outside the window of time I'm looking at. My window really starts from the year 2000 onwards, but this was such a gem I had to go to the State Library here in Sydney and go to the microfilm section and get a copy of this wonderful bit of, I don't know what you'd call it, not scaremongering exactly, I guess it is in a way. It would have cost whoever it was quite a lot of money, 2 full pages and then half a page in the next month saying more or less the same thing. In fact, I'm reading excerpts from the smaller one. However, they all say much the same thing. Let me give you a flavour. Nostradamus, Fatima, the Holy Bible, modern charismatic prophecy, and so on, all agree that the time of tribulation, such as the world has never seen, the time of Jacob's trouble, I wonder what Jacob had trouble with. They can fix those things these days. The great day of wrath of God is at hand in 1980. The timetable for the 7 years is roughly as follows. Oh, this is exciting. I don't remember it happening at the time, but you never know. Whoever wrote this goes on to say, in the next paragraph, I do not guarantee that this is absolutely correct. Well, there you go. I do guarantee the Holy Bible is provedly true, but just hope about the rest. Hope indeed. But I think it is true. And there's, in brackets, it says D full stop MCL full stop. Maybe that's a clue about who wrote this. Anyway, if this is not quite true, it is very close to the truth. There you go. So, it goes on. March 1981, charismatic prophecy. The coming world dictator, the beast of Revelations. Well, it's Revelation, but anyway. The wicked of 2 Thessalonians. The king of the north of Daniel 11. Gog, G-O-G, Gog of the land of Magog. The chief prince of Meshnek, Moscow, and Tubal, Dobrinsk. In other words, the worst man who ever lived, the Antichrist, will be given power or authority over the whole world, thus becoming world dictator. in 1981. 1981. I think I must have missed something. His coming will be, quote, after the work of Satan, with all power and all signs of living wonders, and with deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved, end quote. 2 Thessalonians 2, 9-10. This will not be until many millions of God's praying Muslims are slain. Oh, that's a bit harsh. May 1981, charismatic prophecy. The daily sacrifice will be taken away. Oh, June 1981, charismatic prophecy. The rapture of the saints. The Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout.
Hello, I'm on my way.
Or something like that. With the voice of the archangel, with the triumph of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first. Boy. And it goes on. And it goes on and on and on. It's very small type, you see. Now, you can imagine this sort of thing going on over two full broadsheet papers in the Sydney Morning Herald. Where's another goodie? About halfway through it says, please, dear everyone, do not blame Holy God for all this. That will only cut you off from your only source of help, and it is not really God's fault. It is bordering on rambling, and there is a lot of it. And just flipping over to the two big full-page spreads of more or less the same thing, it's actually not dissimilar, of course, but it's not the same. Isn't that interesting? Whoever wrote this just kept ranting. Well, here's an interesting one. About halfway through one of the huge pages, under the subheading Daniel 2, the king of the north will be slain. Prophesizing Game of Thrones. What do you think? He shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. I think I could write a long-running mini-series based on this. Other highlights include, we must manifest the fruits of the Spirit, as given in Galatians 5:22-23. There are joy, love, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, etc. The Lord has given in charismatic prophecy that this meeting in the air, as described in 1 Thessalonians 4:15-18, will take place next year. Okay. We skip to page 2, column 4, halfway down at random. Without doubt, the devil is trying to wreck civilization and take the world over. He's still trying. This, alas, he is about to do through the worst man who ever lived, the Antichrist, whom God tells us in charismatic prophecy will step onto the world stage this month, April 1980. He will not take over, though, till March 1981. So there you go, everybody. We can go back now, look at all the records, see who stepped onto the world stage in April 1980. Yep. And then we get to the very last column, right down the bottom in small writing. Aha! Aha! As I record this, it says, God bless you all. Please read all of this carefully. It will affect your eternal destiny. Authorized by Mrs. D. McCliskey. And even an address, which I won't repeat because it's just an address here in Sydney. And that long since whoever lived there in 1980 wouldn't be living there anymore, I would imagine. Well, I don't know who you were or are, Mrs. D. McCliskey, but you left your mark briefly. I'm sure thousands of people would have read that or tried to have read it a bit. There are thousands and thousands of words here. And I'm sure whoever you are or were, you must have been or are a very passionate believer. Now, this reminds me very much of a more recent heralding of the end of the world. You will remember, I'm sure, only back in 2011, we had the end of the world coming as prophesied by Harold Camping from the family radio outfit in the United States. Now, his group was so convinced that the end of the world was coming on the 21st of May, 2011, Judgment Day. There were billboards all over the world, including here in Sydney. On Parramatta Road, I remember seeing one. I took a photograph of it, which is a major thoroughfare here in Sydney, major way in and out of the city. Giant sign which said, Judgment Day, May 21st. The Bible guarantees it. Cry mightily unto God. FamilyRadio.com. And indeed, when I was walking downtown in early 2011, I came across a fellow handing out flyers and booklets and things about this very issue. Family Radio, End of the World, Judgment Day, May 21st. And I said to him the classic thing which people always say to End of the World prophecies, and people peddling this. If you think the end of the world is coming, well, why don't you give me all your money now and save the time? And I guess he'd heard that 20 times that day anyway. Now, this also reminds me that some years ago, James Randi put together a list of prophecies going back to ancient times. The end of the world was supposed to be, for example, in the year 960, 1033, 1186, 1260, February the 1st, 1524, 1532, 1533, 1533 again, 1537, not a happy time to be alive, 1572, and so on and so on. We'll get more closer to modern times. Let's have a look now. 1881, and again here in 1953. Both those apparently have something to do with figures calculated from the Great Pyramid. Jehovah's Witnesses said the world would end in 1975. Some say Nostradamus said it would be 1999. And not forgetting the more recent 2011 with the Family Radio, but there are many more to be added. So yes, I think it's important to keep these things. I'm glad I discovered that ranting from 37 years ago in the Sydney Morning Herald. Again, it would have cost a lot of money to put that up. And it's a good lesson to learn and to remember when the next end of the world prophecy comes around, which it will, is to have on hand or have reference to all the failed ones thus far. And it may allay some fears when looked at, or maybe it could be viewed as comic. And sometimes laughing at a silliness like that can allay fears. I'll put a link to the PDF of that ranting from 1980 on this week's show notes. So if you want to, if you're brave enough, you can peruse that document from all those years ago. I wonder if anybody at the time who read that took it seriously and was worried about the end of the world. You may know that Britt Hermes, who is an international skeptical campaigner about naturopathy, is currently being sued for defamation. Britt used to be a naturopath herself, but she now spends a lot of time and effort exposing naturopathic practices, including on her own blog, Naturopathic Diaries. She's been taken to court in Germany by US-based naturopath, quote, Dr., end quote, Colleen Huber, who is claiming that Britt has defamed her on her blog. Huber is a critic of chemotherapy and radiation therapy in cancer treatment. Instead, she uses, quote, natural, end quote, therapies that include intravenous infusions of vitamin C and baking soda. The international skeptical community is concerned that the case against Britt may have the effect of silencing a major campaigner against unproven and disproven, quote, medical, end quote, practices through the imposition of considerable legal costs. For this reason, the Australian Skeptics have set up a fundraising campaign to help cover Britt's legal costs. If you would like to contribute to the fund, or you want some more information, then go to www.skeptics.com.au/Britt Hermes. That's BRITTHERMES. www.skeptics.com.au/Britt Hermes.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, I'm just down the end of the bar here at the usual Skeptics in the pub, and tonight we're downstairs in level 1, which is like the good room the parents have let you into because the young Liberals are having a meeting upstairs. I'll be up there later asking them about why they want to cut the dole off to people under 30 and what Tony Abbott should actually say when people ask him what he thinks of the Turnbull government. Look, now, as you know, we like to find out what makes someone want to come along to a Skeptics meeting in the first place, particularly if they haven't got a beard. Who have we got here?
Marius.
And Marius, well, how did you find yourself at your first Skeptics in the pub, and why would you want to hang out with a bunch of cranks like this?
Well, I found this on Meetup, and, I'm a bit of a crank myself, so I hope I'll fit right in.
What's your specialty crank area?
At the moment, I'm finishing my degree in mathematics and business.
Okay.
But,
so what are you the most sceptical of, then? What's the thing that really gets your goat up? Astrology, naturopathy, people putting hot rocks on someone's back?
I don't know, the job market.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. That can be a bit... that isn't really very logical out there, is it?
No.
Okay. And what are you hoping to get out of it, by the way? Meet some like-minded people, I guess.
Meet like-minded people. I saw, late last year, I saw a sign in a high school up in the Hunter that said... when we think we have the truth, we stop learning. And I thought that was I thought more schools should have signs like that.
Yes. That's a good one, yes. That's a good school motto as well. Okay.
I certainly agree.
Well, enjoy your second meeting tonight.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
And tell me,
yes?
where can I get a jacket like that?
Oh, okay, hang on. Oh, and of course, there's a supplementary question.
Where can I get a jacket like that?
$2 second-hand shop in Newcastle near Hamilton Station.
Lovely. See you later.
There you go. See, I'm giving fashion advice now, Jessica.
That's wonderful. I mean, no one I can think of is better qualified than you.
That's true. It's got a bit of a 70s thing going on, which is good. I'm going to be asking people tonight, because we're talking about the loss of Barry Williams to the skeptical movement, and it makes me wonder, how would you like to be remembered after you're gone? Now, the answer can be a skeptical answer, or it could be light-hearted, but it's something that we don't like to think about, and also something we have pretty much no control over.
Oh, absolutely. I'm completely in denial. I'm never going to go.
and what would you like? Oh, there's that woman who did that thing that one time, or something like that.
Well, I suppose I'd like to be remembered by my friends in the skeptical movement as somebody who made a contribution, however small.
Yeah, that's true. And what was it like at Barry's funeral? Did you go along?
Yeah, I went to Barry's funeral. It was sad, of course, but it was a good celebration and remembrance of his life and everything that he achieved in all the areas, skeptical and also in the Air Force, and as a family man. It was really lovely.
And when it comes to people dying, do you think that perhaps when they do leave, sometimes initially you tend to sugarcoat their memory a little bit much? Like, you often don't get eulogies that go, well, this person or that person, he didn't pay back his loans on time and he always wore crappy shoes. Do you ever get anything like that? That is interesting that you can't really, and particularly immediately after they've gone, you can't really say anything bad.
Well, that wasn't the case at Barry's funeral. I mean, there was no dirt like unpaid loans or anything like that. But certainly he was given his due as a skeptical curmudgeon, which he would have been most happy with, and his family were quite honest in calling him one of the most annoying people you could ever hope to meet or live with.
And that's pretty funny. As it made me forget what I was going to say next. It'll come. That's funny. I've never heard that. And of course, I'm here with Iran as well. He's ready for a big night here. I believe we're in the nice room tonight, aren't we?
We are in the nice room. I'm not sure they're going to let us in again, but they let us in once.
Yes, because we're troublemakers. But after you're gone, after you're no longer on this mortal realm or whatever we're living in, how would you like to be remembered? I mean, you really don't have much of a say over it, but how would you like to be remembered?
Well, you mean when I'm dead?
Yeah, when you're dead. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You don't like using the, they've passed on, they've shuffled off. No one says they're dead. Yeah, do they?
No. The word dead is actually quite representative of what actually happens.
Yes.
How I would like to be remembered? I mean, I think it depends by whom. Definitely within the Skeptics, I would like to be remembered as somebody who's contributed and made a difference to the organization, to the community. In my family,
have you actually thought of any funeral plans at this stage? You're fairly young, you wouldn't have, but
No,
because I have.
I don't have any plans to die anytime soon. Therefore, I haven't made funeral plans. Frankly, I'm not much for. A funeral is for those remaining. So, as far as I'm concerned, those remaining can decide what suits them, and I don't believe in an afterlife. I believe that when I'm dead, that's it for me. So I just hope they'll do what's right for them and what makes them feel best about me going. It could be that what they'll be doing is going, cheers, hopefully not,
And how did you find Barry's funeral, by the way, Barry Williams' funeral? Was it a good one, or as far as a funeral being a good one?
Look, the thing is, he was probably too young to die, but he was not a young man. He was not particularly well. He was sick for a while. He was in hospital for about 5 or 6 weeks. So that helps. It's still difficult to say goodbye to a family man and to a friend. I've known Barry for 17 years. He was my first contact within the skeptical movement. And we've talked about things extensively over the years. I spoke to him about a week before he died. I was going to visit him. So not being able to see him was difficult, but the funeral, I think, represented the man. He was cheerful in a sense, people talking about how he was, about his sense of humor and about his contribution to the Skeptics, about a contribution to the life of people around him. I thought it was a very nice funeral. Again, for those remaining.
Yep.
I don't think Barry would care. So,
and look, if there is an afterlife, he's going to be very surprised, isn't he?
I think it would be in line with what he would have expected. Cricket was mentioned often, because cricket is something that when you talk about Barry, cricket has to be mentioned very often. That's the way it is with Barry. Cricket needs to be mentioned. Cricket.
Yeah, I'm just not planning on dying.
Well, yeah, we have a lot of people that are cancelling their death this evening that I'm speaking to. Yes, after you're dead, how do you think you'd like people to remember you?
I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die.
Oh, well, of course, it does avoid the question. That's rather. I hadn't thought of that.
I don't think people are going to remember me for very long.
I think you'd be surprised. I mean,
probably wouldn't be surprised because I'd be dead.
There'd be at least 2 generations in it usually, Yeah. Are you guys having to given a bit of thought to what sort of legacy you want to leave when you go?
Yeah, it'll be the fall of my totalitarian government.
Oh, okay.
Toppling.
That's the Saddam Hussein exit, is it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, just don't do the Gaddafi one. Not so good.
Okay, I'll try not to.
Good luck with your totalitarian government. See, we get a lot of people like that here. What about you, sir? Have you thought about it? No, he's another person who's not going to die. Okay, that's all right. Who we got over here? How are you?
Good.
I see you've been to a few music festivals lately, haven't you?
Yes, it was pretty good. I went to Burning Seed. Very eccentric place. I'm sure you could find a lot of good pseudoscience there, but it's fun. Everyone there is so lovely. They'll come up to you and tell you that they can see your soul, and they'll tell you that your soul is beautiful.
Yeah, could anyone see your aura?
I haven't asked, but I think that if you did a survey there, pretty soon you could find someone who could read your aura.
Did they describe what the soul you had looked like?
No, but I'll ask next time.
Yeah, okay, if you can see it, smarty bum, draw it, or better still, take a photo.
I will. I mean, I hope my soul's good looking, so...
Well, yeah, you can only hope so. And when you actually depart this planet, shuffle off this mortal coil, go to whatever the other realm may be, if there's one, but it's a skeptics meeting, so we're saying there isn't, how would you like to be remembered?
My answer's boring, but it's honest. I just want people to say that I was nice. That I was a nice person, that's all.
So what, you want the first thing to come out of their mouth when they go, oh, she's died, and you want people to say the first thing that comes out of their mouth about you, on hearing of your death?
I'm going to miss her bright coloured hair. No, I don't know. That's just the first thing that came to my mind.
Well, no, that's fine. That's good. That's a happy thing. And they go, yeah, you could so see her soul. Her aura, not so much, but her soul, you could really see that. Cool. Oh, and you might be wondering, hey, Maynard, how would you like to be remembered after you died? Well, that die's already been cast because of all the work I've done around the place and on the internet. Pretty much you only have to look up Wikipedia to, I was that guy that did something once. And I think that says it all, really. Back to the studio with Richard Saunders, who is standing by with more than one cat.
Hello, this is Sharon Hill, creator of DoubtfulNews.com and the 15 Credibility Street podcast. I have a new book from McFarland Publishing called Scientifical Americans, The Culture of Amateur Paranormal Researchers. Scientifical means attempting to be scientific and do science, but falling short. This book is the first full examination of the rise of amateur research and investigation groups in America and how they do or don't use science to investigate ghosts, UFOs, and cryptids like Bigfoot and lake monsters. I place these thousands of paranormal explorers into the historical context of their subject areas, chart the influence of paranormal-themed media and the internet, and examine what it means to do science and how amateurs can contribute. Paranormal believers, skeptics, and persons of all opinions in between will find Scientifical Americans to be a unique view of the modern relationship between science and society, as well as our engagement with paranormal themes in popular culture. Purchase the book through your favorite bookseller or an Amazon Kindle version. For more info, visit my website at sharonahill.com.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone this week, and thank you to Heidi and Maynard. Great to have your voices back on the Skeptic Zone. Now, some information about some upcoming events around the traps. Our friends at Mordi Skeptics, Mordi Skeptics in the pub, this Tuesday, the 6th of February, and that's at the Mordi Sporting Club, south of Melbourne. They've got a meet-up, and the title is Rogues and Reputables, with Don Hyatt. We read in the media of those that prey on the gullible and the uninformed. Miracle cures, tables to make your child more intelligent, the list goes on. And there are those who fight the good fight and are trying to save consumers from themselves. An interesting talk to be sure, and you can find out more about that by following the link on this week's show notes. And of course we have Logical LA. That's on the 9th of this month to the 11th. And it says, Logical LA 2018 brings many exciting speakers to the Los Angeles area for an inspiring weekend of critical thinking and skepticism, social evening events, and entertainment. And again, I'll add a link to the show notes, or if you just look up, Logical, LOGICAL-LA, you'll find out all about that. And I wish I could be there, and I hope it goes off with a bang. Thank you once again to those people who continue in 2018 to support the Skeptic Zone financially. In a very real sense, you really do help to keep the show... Oh, hello. Going? Hello? You're back. What's up? Oh, meow. Maud, thanks you too. And if you want to contribute to the show, help us keep it going. It's very easy. You can go to skepticzone.tv and support us via Patreon or PayPal. Much appreciated. And coming up, before I forget, next month at Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, we're having a special skeptical trivia evening. Lara Benham, Maynard and myself will be presenting 60 trivia questions based on your knowledge of skepticism. Lots of fun, drinks along the way, some other prizes, and I hope you can join us. More details, again, by looking at the show notes. Or just turn up at the Occidental Hotel first Thursday of every month at Wynyard here in Sydney. But until next week, where I'm sure I'll be completely well again, this is Richard Saunders and Maud, who is now somewhere behind me. Oh, there she is, rolling on her back. Oh, how cute is that? Signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. You can be part of the show by downloading the Voice Byte app at voicebyte.com and using the hashtag Skeptic Zone. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.